Broadcasting from Manhattan Beach and the World Wide Web, you're listening to CHSR, HealthyLife.net.
As a service to our listeners, this program is for general information and entertainment purposes only. CHSR, HealthyLife.net does not recommend, endorse, or object to the views, products, or topics expressed or discussed by show hosts or their guests. We suggest you always consult with your own personal, medical, financial, or legal advisor.
Greetings, or may I say Vojo and Potawatomi, to those joining us for today's Indigenous Perspective show. I'm Randy Kwiatkowski, an enrolled Potawatomi tribal member and the co-host of Indigenous Perspectives. Our program today is titled A New Drumbeat for Indigenous Artists.
Indigenous Perspectives originates from Vermont in the United States. Vermont is located on lands that the Abenaki people call Indakina. It's the unceded traditional territory of the Abenaki people who for thousands of years have been and continue to be stewards of the lands found here and across the border in Quebec province in Canada. We welcome our two guests from the Indigenous art world today. Laurie Beavis is the Executive Director of Daphne Arts Centre in Montreal. Laurie has mixed Indigenous settler heritage. On her maternal side, she is Mississauga, Anishinaabe, and Welsh. Her paternal family is Irish-British. And Michelle Sound, a visual artist, is a member of the Swan River First Nation, a Cree nation whose territories are in the Canadian province of Alberta. Laurie joins us today from Montreal, and Michelle joins us from the Vancouver area in British Columbia. For listeners who would like to see the artwork we will be talking about, you can find a link at randykwiatkowski.com, Randy's author website.
So each of you represents a new drumbeat, new paths for Indigenous artists. One of you is an artist and the other is a gallery manager. Can you describe your paths, how you met, how you're collaborating now?
Well, I had applied to Daphne. I had heard there was a new Indigenous Artist Run Center, which was very exciting. And so I submitted my artwork to be included in hopefully an exhibition there, because, you know, that's such an amazing new space to have. An Indigenous-led Artist Run Center is so awesome. There's very few in Canada. And then, I was contacted by Laurie and offered an exhibition there, which was amazing. So it's currently up at Daphne right now. And, it's been really great working with Laurie, you know, through so many emails. Haven't met in person yet.
That was never met in person yet because I was sick.
So Zoom and emails. So it's been a really great experience.
So Laurie, what's your path to the position you're in now?
Well, I started out my life as an art historian, and I've also been an art educator, and I've done about 10 years ago. I started doing independent curatorial work, freelance, and then when Daphne advertised a job as the director, and I've always been involved with artist-run centers as well and through the arts all through my life, and I applied, and it was a lovely interview just the day before the pandemic lockdown started in March 2020, and it was great. I was hired, and we just figured it all out, and just figured it out from home. And in May of 2021, we had at Daphne, we had our first exhibition. So things were delayed and postponed for a really long time. But so I'm here as the director of Daphne. And yes, as Michelle said, we put out a call for proposals in May last year, and for our first sort of to add to our first full year of programming that was already arranged, and everybody just fell in love with the idea of these amazing fur-covered, pastel fur-covered drums, and just thought, it will look so great in our space, and it absolutely does. So it's a joy to come in every day and just see the rabbit fur sort of dancing a little bit in the heat vents from through our gallery.
So Michelle, since our listeners aren't seeing what Laurie's talking about, can you describe, and I know this is really an unfair thing to do to artists, say, okay, you've spent your life and, recent months making these works, now put it into words for a listener, but can you describe essentially what you put into the work, and maybe even back up a little bit and explain, how you got into the field of art and being an artist when that happened?
For sure. I guess it must have been 22 years ago now that I started my undergrad degree and went into visual arts. It's funny when Laurie said she's art historian, that was originally what I thought I wanted to do, and that's what I studied for 2 years was art history. And then I started taking visual arts classes, like non-credit courses, and realized that that was what I actually wanted to go into was art. I originally wasn't going to because I just thought you can't have a career or like a job as an artist. But then I realized that's what I actually really wanted to do. So yeah, I started the visual arts program, which meant I ended up being in school for a very long time. But yeah, and then completed my degree, and then I had my son in 2007. And when he was 2, as a single mom, I decided to go back to school and get my master's degree. I really wanted to recommit myself to my art practice. As a young mom, it's pretty hard to have the time to do it, and so I wanted to focus on it. And then I started making drums. I learned how to make drums during my master's degree, and elk hide and deer hide drums, and I would dye them and paint them. And I wanted to make a series that was about my Japan and my kokum, so my great-grandma and my grandma, and about how they had a rabbit trap line, a rabbit snares, and how they used that to provide for the families, like the meat from the rabbits to eat, but then they also sold the rabbits fur, or use the fur as a trim on moccasins that they would make. And just all the work that they did to provide for their family was just like so incredible to me. The resourcefulness and the hard work they did. So I did a series of drums made out of rabbit fur, and they're not playable. They don't make a sound. They don't have the elk hide behind them to make that drumming noise. So they're a visual arts piece. And so I made Trapline, and that's taking up the big wall in Daphne. I actually don't even know how many drums are in that one. I think it's like 20, maybe 22 drums on the walls of various sizes of rabbit fur drums. So the smallest ones are 8 inches, and the largest are, I believe, 18 inches. And the 18-inch drums are rabbit furs that have been sewn together, because rabbits are not that big. And so they're all pastel dyed, and are a series about my kokum in Japan. And then another series there is called HBC Trapline, and that was made in 2019. And it's 4 rabbit fur drums, and they're small. They're, I think those ones are 10 inches. And they're in the 4 colors of the HBC logo, the red, yellow, blue, and green. And then there are 4 beaver pelts on the floor. And that piece was just acknowledging all the, the hard work that Indigenous women contributed to the fur trade. So this was about like my, distant ancestors, not distant, but, further back ancestors that I didn't personally know who worked in the fur trade and, did all the harvesting of the pelts and the tanning of them, and just acknowledging the hard work that they did that is often not written about. When talking about the fur trade, it's often described as just men working in the fur trade, but Indigenous women did a lot of the work. And then the 4 beaver pelts are like the idea of trading. The trade was roughly that 4 beaver pelts would equal 1 HBC blanket. And the HBC blanket started to replace traditional ways of using blankets, like, for little kids or smaller blankets, rabbit furs were sewn together to make a blanket. But they started to be replaced by the HBC blanket.
Okay, just to clarify, HBC, that's the Hudson Bay Company, a major economic force in the British-dominated settlement and expansion of the British in Canada westward.
So, Lori, as a gallery director, how do you help an artist tell their story, especially in this, Zoom COVID era when you haven't met face to face and these things go up? I mean, this is really quite an intriguing story going on behind the scenes here.
Well, yeah, one of the things that we always we do curate. No, we commission an essay. Either if the exhibition is curated by a curator, then that person would write an essay to explore and examine and explain the exhibition and the premise of why the work is together and that sort of thing. And in this case, I asked Michelle who she would like to have write about her work, and we have a lovely essay that's also on our website by Yaz Morgan, and it's delightful. It talks about, because the exhibition is called Aunties Do It Better in English and in French, Les Tantes Sont le Mieux, and we also have a Cree title, and I'm afraid I can't even attempt, but it is on our website and people will see. And we always also, just sort of as a side note, we always have Indigenous language in the exhibition, in the space in some way, whether it's through a title or through wall text or whatever. So that's a way for people to sort of have to gather an understanding about what the exhibition is about. Whenever people come into the gallery, I always explain what we've got here and the show that we've got, and say, let me ask you or answer any questions for you or whatever. And so there's always a really nice, interesting dialogue, and that's very much a part of, one of the reasons that Daphne came into existence as well, is because we were very interested in having people start to have conversations with one another and to dialogue and to talk about it, so that people, because it's through talking with one another and through talking about art as well, is also an extremely good way to sort of ask questions and listen to the answers and sort of come to an understanding about the histories that are hidden, or the political and social issues that people as artists are talking about, and that sort of thing. So it's really.
I'm going to switch it here because I think you raised a really important point about political and social issues being intimately connected. Here's a quotation from the program, the write-up about Michelle's show. Quote, "Together, drums are a force to honor and venerate. Drums dominate you. The drums are beautiful but unplayable, as are the tough Indigenous women who inspired Michelle's sound." End of quote. I thought that was a fabulous insight into a lot of the strength that is a key point of your message as I understand it. So, Michelle, want to comment a bit on that? The strength of the women, the strength of the aunties?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really love the essay that Yaz wrote for the exhibition. I've always loved their writing, and just was so honored that they took the time and the care to write that great essay. And I just feel they captured so much of what I was trying to say. Because, as a visual artist, it's harder to translate, like, what your idea is into words. And it's great when a writer can do that for you. And so with my work, with the 4 pieces that are in Daphne, and I call it aunties, and I just mean it aunties to mean like all of them. Like, one piece is about my mother, and another piece, like I said, is my Japan and my Kukum, and another one is about aunties. And so just, they're all aunties. And so I just wanted to really, honor, like, the amount of work and the unrecognized work that Indigenous women have always done and continue to do. Like, our moms and our aunties always take care of us. And I was always raised being told, and I know, a lot of other Indigenous people are told the same thing, that, your aunties are your moms. So you have the same respect and love and care for your aunties as you do for your mother, and they have the same for you. And that aunties extends beyond your biological family, right? Like, you have a community of aunties that take care of you. And sometimes you don't even find out till you're older that someone you've been calling auntie your whole life is actually not even related to you. But, it's your mom's good friend or your mom's something. So I just really wanted to honor just like how much work and how much strength Indigenous women bring and provide for their families and our communities.
So, Lori, when you began to work on this project, did you imagine that this kind of storytelling about the social structure and culture of Indigenous people would be hanging on the wall and be so eloquent? Or, has this been sort of a discovery process as you go along?
Oh, no, I always knew that the work was going to be amazing and strong and spoke to really important social issues. And I think that one of the things that we've come through and towards, and I certainly in all of the exhibitions that I curate as an independent curator, is that the underlying premise of it is always for people to represent themselves, for Indigenous people to talk about their own experience, because that is so often in the past people have been, it's whether it's photographers came and traveled around the countries, our United States and Canada, and took photographs and positioned people in a certain way, or it was through Hollywood or whatever it was, and people never had a chance to sort of tell their own story and represent themselves in the way that they wanted to. And so think about Michelle's piece that is called the Aunties piece, and there they are in all their glory and their leopard skin and their leather and their fringe and those, and my aunties didn't necessarily wear a leopard print, but they were strong women, and they were always somebody to admire in some way, and there is a great strength there. So yeah, I think it's the story that's on the wall is well worth coming and looking at and thinking about, and
I'd like to hear from you on specific obstacles that Indigenous artists have faced. Obviously, you're working to overcome these and bring about more visibility and more credit. But can you be specific about the kinds of things that each of you have encountered as Indigenous artists and art supporters?
I think for me as a visual artist, what has been the most difficult, because it's a daily thing, is that I do not have a studio space. Vancouver is extremely expensive. I live in, one of the most expensive cities in Canada. And I'm a single mom, and I don't have, the extra like $400 a month that sharing a studio would cost. So I work from a little table from Walmart in one of my rooms, and that's what that's my space to work. And so, having a studio space would be amazing, and just really help my practice, because I buy so many materials, and they're hard to store. I have bags and bags and bags of jackets and other rabbit pelts and other things to store that are just kind of all over my house. So on a daily basis, definitely not having a studio space and high rents and, affordable housing is definitely the everyday experience that I have with an obstacle to my art making for sure.
So, Lori, when we visited your gallery, I guess it was a couple of months ago now, we met a young artist who was in residence. Does that help to address this issue of a space to, spread your wings and work? How is that a part of your model?
That was just a very ad hoc moment because we actually had space in our schedule, but we do in 2022 we have 2 artist residencies set into our schedule. One will take place at Daphne and the other will take place in a studio that people have lent to us. But absolutely, it's the same thing in Montreal as it is in Tiohtià:ke as it is in Vancouver. Just, artists are in spaces. Indigenous artists make less money. Women artists make less money. And so there's an issue about having space to do your work and the fact that the studio spaces are not available as well. It's just, the places like that just get gobbled up by gentrification and then they have to move. And so there's all lots of issues like that. So.
We'll continue to explore these challenges and how you've overcome them and arrived at, this marvelous display that hangs on the wall. It's not just as simple as someone sitting down and doing their work. We'll take a break and be back in a minute.
Citizen Potawatomi Nation's Cultural Heritage Center, located near Shawnee, Oklahoma, features 11 immersive galleries with digital and interactive exhibits. Visitors learn about the tribe's history from origin to modern days and gain an understanding of Citizen Potawatomi oral traditions and lifeways. Admission is always free. Open Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., Saturday 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Visit the Cultural Heritage Center on the web at PotawatomiHeritage.com.
Period poverty. If you don't know what it is, you should, because you can help. 1 in 4 American women struggle to purchase menstruation products this year, resulting in missed school and even loss of income. The Native American women's nonprofit, Queck Society, cares enough to give Native American students and communities their period products, and they do it across North America. Please help women with your time, donations, or supplies to maintain their dignity and celebrate their strength during moon time. Visit quecksociety.org. That's KWEK Society.org.
Listen up. The source for information and inspirational items about the struggle and wisdom of Indigenous people is the Syracuse Cultural Workers. They are committed to peace, sustainability, social justice, feminism, and multiculturalism, and they create beautiful visual materials like calendars, T-shirts, cards, and more, including their Greetings and Thanks to the Natural World accordion poster that offers daily grounding for our relationship to the earth and its many fellow beings. Get so many wonderful items. Go there now. SyracuseCulturalWorkers.com.
Randy Krakowski's book, Without Reservation, describes his spiritual awakening as a Native American. It's a powerful, life-changing story where Randy shares his journey into the realm of ancestral Native American connections and explores his encounters with Mother Earth. The book actually helps you how to reconnect with your ancestors to rekindle your access to ancestral wisdom and nature. Available in print, ebook, and audiobook format. Get Without Reservation by Randy Krakowski from all major booksellers. For more information, visit randykrakowski.com.
Feel you have no control over life? There's something you can do to make a difference for you, your family, and community. Stay positive and take a break from the dark side. Uplifting and enlightening. Listen to the positive side of podcasts. hrnradio.com.
Welcome back to Indigenous Perspectives. Today we're talking with 2 guests from the Indigenous art world in Canada. Laurie Beavis, Executive Director of Daphne Arts Center in Montreal, and Michelle Sound, a visual artist who is a member of the Swan River First Nation community.
So, Laurie, before we switch topics here, I know there are a few things that you wanted to add to our discussion about supporting the arts in general. Why don't you go with that idea?
Okay, well, I just wanted to say that, that there are obviously obstacles and there are always issues about funding and things like that. And certainly the Indigenous arts have always been chronically underfunded. But one of the things that happened around Canada 150 in 2017 was that there was a recognition of how poorly funded the Indigenous artists, contemporary artists have been. And so one of the things that happened was that the Canada Council created Creating, Knowing and Sharing, which is a program that's directly related and funds Indigenous art projects across the country. And also even in Quebec, while there was a little bit of a time lag, they caught up at the Conseil d'Art and Letters of Quebec, and there's the recognition program for Indigenous artists in this province as well. So it sort of has helped because it can, but one of the things that we still need and is still there's the issue of obstacles in that. And it sort of ties into what Daphne's doing as well, is that a lot of the exhibitions that we do are solo exhibitions because it's very, very difficult for people to get solo exhibitions. And so it's, that's a marker of recognition. It's also a marker of the career to date, whether it's a very young artist like the person that you met, Guy Denuro, Dumoulin Bush, in October, or Michelle, who's sort of more mid-career artist. So there's that. And, but then, the other thing that continues and needs to continue to happen is that there need to be Indigenous artists and curators and cultural workers on juries in the institutions and in the bigger institutions as well as the small ones. And so that's it's moving forward in a good way, but it just needs to keep moving forward as well. So.
Carolyn and I are part-time residents of Montreal. We go back and forth across the border, and the difference in support for the arts in general, not to mention Indigenous artists on each side of the border, is absolutely astounding. I know there are still obstacles on your side of the border, but what Canada is doing really is a model, and I keep trying to draw attention to it globally, and we do have global listeners who can learn a lot about what's going on in Canada and what is going on. So to ever so slightly switch the topic, it's actually building on it. One of the things that, Daphne gallery artists do is to break the mold of, the traditional Indigenous arts exhibition, which, we go to a museum and we see beaded moccasins and we see the elk-covered drum. And we are told, that's what Indigenous art was. Well, that's not exactly what we're seeing when we come to the gallery. So can both of you talk about, the evolution of art in a modern world as seen through the eyes of Indigenous artists and an Indigenous arts gallery manager?
I'll let Michelle speak to this, but of course my first question is always, well, what is traditional? Because what is traditional? And that's, the Indigenous people have always been very adaptive and very resilient and moved and changed in really good ways. And, I think that Michelle's work speaks to that as well, and taking the hand drum and making portraits of people through the work that she's creating.
Yeah, I definitely think of my work as not like breaking the mold or changing anything. It's more of a continuation, right? It's just Indigenous artists, Indigenous people have always, embraced new materials and made it their own. For example, beadwork, that's obviously a post-contact trade material, and Indigenous people have so made it their own art form, right? Recognizable and just beautiful work and everything. And that's just an adaptation of, using different type of beads and shells and different quill work and different materials that were already existing and just incorporating new materials. And I just think that what I'm doing is a continuation of that, just because it's still the drum form, and just, using new materials in that. It's just, I think I'm just continuing, a very long tradition of trying new things.
So for Indigenous people across the world, we did a program on Mongolian shamanism. Drums are animate. They're not just things, that you tap on and make a sound. That they communicate. They open a doorway. So when you're making your drums, is there a point at which the drum isn't the thing you're making, but the drum takes on its own life? Does it talk back to you? Does it guide you?
There's a couple different ways in the making. One of the things is I'm interested in working with drums is because I've always grown up with the idea that drums are the heartbeat of the people, right? So when I am making these particular textile drums, one of the things I'm thinking about is, Lori touched on this a little bit, is that they are kind of more like portraits. So a lot of the times when I'm sourcing the materials, the specific jackets, or the specific fringe or something, I'm thinking of a particular person, or it's a memory for me, like something I remember from my childhood, or sparks a memory about someone that's been important to me. And so I think of the drums already as being like, they're very animate. They're people to me. They represent these people. And so that is definitely part of it. And then in the making of the drum, I often think about my Chapan and my Kukum when they would process the, harvest and process the rabbit furs, and how they would do it was wrapping the sinew around the pelt around 4 sticks tied together, right? Like how they would do deer, or, they had circular ones for beaver, but it was the same little mini version of that. And I think of that when I make the drums, because I do a similar thing, except around it's not the 4 sticks tied together, it's around a drum frame. And so I do a similar motion of wrapping the sinew around the fur and then wrapping it around a frame. And so I think of them a lot when I'm doing that similar hand motion, and I just feel like connected to them in that way. So for me, it's definitely not just an object.
Thank you. This is a marvelous description. I've rarely had an artist explain so wonderfully and lucidly the actual process of creation. And, you're in a sense sort of recapitulating, a very traditional process of creating something. You're making it come alive for our listeners. We'll take a break and be back in a minute.
Located near Shawnee, Oklahoma, Citizen Potawatomi Nation is Potawatomi County's largest employer with a rich history and culture as a sovereign Native nation. Learn more about CPN by visiting its website, which includes information on services for members, tribal enterprises, government and constitution, the newspaper, and much more. All at Potawatomi.org. That's POTAWATOMI.org.
Randy Krakowski's book, Without Reservation, describes his spiritual awakening as a Native American. It's a powerful, life-changing story where Randy shares his journey into the realm of ancestral Native American connections and explores his encounters with Mother Earth. The book actually helps you how to reconnect with your ancestors to rekindle your access to ancestral wisdom and nature. Available in print, ebook, and audiobook format, Get Without Reservation by Randy Krakowski from all major booksellers. For more information, visit randykrakowski.com.
Since 1975, Inner Traditions has been publishing books for the healing and spiritual journey. Their mission is to rediscover, preserve, and protect these spiritual traditions of the world so that humanity will forever have the tools to create a better future that will celebrate and heal the earth. Inner Traditions books, card decks, and other products are available wherever books, ebooks, and audiobooks are sold. Or visit InnerTradition.com's online bookstore. And while you're there, sign up for their free newsletter to receive special offers. That's InnerTraditions.com.
Period poverty. If you don't know what it is, you should, because you can help. 1 in 4 American women struggle to purchase menstruation products this year, resulting in missed school and even loss of income. The Native American women's nonprofit, Queck Society, cares enough to give Native American students and communities their period products, and they do it across North America. Please help women with your time, donations, or supplies to maintain their dignity and celebrate their strength during moon time. Visit quecksociety.org. That's KWEK Society.org.
Don't get angry. Anger is a negative emotion that suppresses your immune system that may cause health problems. Make a positive difference by working together to protect and support your family, friends, and community. Take a break from the dark side. Uplifting and enlightening. Listen to the positive side of podcasts. hrnradio.com.
Welcome back to Indigenous Perspectives, talking with Laurie Beavis and Michelle Sound about the Indigenous women's art world in Canada in particular.
So we've touched on the whole issue of Indigenous women in the world of art and Indigenous art, but I think there's a lot to be gained by digging a bit more deeply into this topic. Can you two reflect on, again, your experiences, your perspectives, and your aspirations?
I think that, I just think that in terms of being a cultural worker in as an Indigenous / settler woman, I think that there's role models in my personal life, and there's certainly role models in my cultural life as well. And I'm just, I think about the women that I've had a chance to work with, Shelley Nero and Laurie Blondeau, and there's just among two of many, and just to think about the contribution that those women have made to contemporary Indigenous art, and again speaking to the idea of self-representation, is extraordinary and wonderful. And Laurie Blondeau continues. Michelle and Laurie are in an exhibition together in Vancouver right now as well, and so there's always that sort of cross-generational thing, cross-cultural thing as well, and across territories and nations, and so there's really interesting things can come out of that as well. And
Michelle, why don't you pick up and talk about your joint exhibition? That's an interesting topic.
Yeah, I was asked by the Grunt Gallery in Vancouver if I would be interested in having an exhibition with Laurie Blondeau, and I was just like jaw on the floor. Like, of course I would be interested. Laurie Blondeau is like one of my art heroes and has been, since I was in an undergrad student, and I just love her work. It was so important and informative to me that being in the art exhibition with her is amazing. And it's a video work performance of hers. And then I have a series of Deadly Auntie drums on the wall. And I really like, that it's, is, across generations, and just me having a conversation with someone who's been so important to my own work. I consider Laurie like one of my art aunties. She's always been really nice to talk to. We don't live in the same city or anything, but like has been very open to like getting messages from me that are about like, how do you handle this artist mom life? How do you do a residency when you've got kids and stuff like that? So she's been just like such an important person to my practice. And I have other art aunties as well that are really great at offering feedback and stuff. Dana Claxton, I just have so many Indigenous women artists that I look up to. Shelley Nero is another one. Rebecca Belmore, just artists who really paved the way. Like, I don't exist without those artists. Like, they are super important to my practice. And I know, like, among my peers and, like, the younger generation, these are all the artists that we look up to and are inspired by.
And the subject matter that these women are indulging in is not indulging, but working within the context of is just so amazing. You think about Rebecca Belmore and the way that she has talked about and performed in terms of speaking to Indigenous women who are missing and murdered, and that is just, and that again speaks to what I said earlier about the idea that through art we can enter into these difficult conversations and learn, and people who are viewers and visitors to exhibitions and seeing this work by these amazing women artists are just their knowledge, they gain knowledge from that, and the other great thing about art, of course, is that it's such an easy way to enter into a conversation and so the material is there, is presented to people. And then I've also, part of the work that I do again is I feel very strongly that by situating the art in such a way and people come and visit it, and then it's up to them to go and find out whose territory they are on, to learn the histories and to ask good questions and to listen to good, listen well to the answers as well. So it's all part of a learning process, and the Red Dress Project, Jamie Isaacs, I think, was the artist who started that. Just needs, it was like a flag. It was a way for people to sort of, start to be able to talk about these issues that have been part of the community for a really long time, and was really important for them to come to a larger audience, for people to be able to start to make recognition.
Can one of you explain what the Red Dress Project is for our listeners? I mean, it has incredibly high profile in Canada, and we've heard about it in the United States.
Well, we saw the video, but it's when we were in Montreal. So explaining about it, I think, would be really good.
It started out with the artist deciding that she wanted to make red dresses, collect red dresses and make them visible in public spaces. And I don't know, maybe you know Michelle for sure, but I don't know whether it was the dresses hung originally from places where women had gone missing, but certainly that's the idea, that they. No? Okay, sorry, pardon me. Do you want to speak to
No, but they're hung in public spaces, and you can see them, like I've seen them just driving around, like some people have hung them from trees in their yard or on their fences or downtown spaces, and just it represents, like a red dress represents like an Indigenous woman that has gone missing or been murdered, and so it just makes them visible that, it's a person, right? So it's really important and powerful in that way. And so, yeah, there's a lot of, it's raised a lot of awareness. I've seen them in places that I did not expect to see them. So really important work. And I've seen other artworks that are, reference that or are inspired by that. And of course, Rebecca did an incredibly important piece where she was wearing a red dress and I think her sister, and nailed it to a telephone pole and had to rip herself out of the dress. So it's a really important, visual representation of the women.
What's coming through, and it's wonderfully strong message, in our program so far, is how Indigenous artists are using, various art forms, be they performance art, or making drums, to deliver, really, really strong messages about what it means to be an Indigenous person. And, I like the way Michelle's art balances the equation, because very often we hear about, the victimhood, which unfortunately continues to be a huge part of Indigenous life for Indigenous women. But to flip that and make it affirmative, and put the drums on the wall is so bold. And I have to say, it strikes me as courageous. And I want to personally thank you for doing that. Let's take a break, and we'll come back for the final segment in a minute.
Citizen Potawatomi Nation's Cultural Heritage Center, located near Shawnee, Oklahoma, features 11 immersive galleries with digital and interactive exhibits. Visitors learn about the tribe's history from origin to modern days and gain an understanding of Citizen Potawatomi oral traditions and lifeways. Admission is always free. Open Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., Saturday 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Visit the Cultural Heritage Center on the web at PotawatomiHeritage.com.
Period poverty. If you don't know what it is, you should, because you can help. 1 in 4 American women struggle to purchase menstruation products this year, resulting in missed school and even loss of income. The Native American women's nonprofit, Queck Society, cares enough to give Native American students and communities their period products, and they do it across North America. Please help women with your time, donations, or supplies to maintain their dignity and celebrate their strength during moon time. Visit quecksociety.org. That's KWEK Society.org.
Listen up. The source for information and inspirational items about the struggle and wisdom of Indigenous people is the Syracuse Cultural Workers. They are committed to peace, sustainability, social justice, feminism, and multiculturalism, and they create beautiful visual materials like calendars, T-shirts, cards, and more, including their greetings and thanks to the natural world accordion poster that offers daily grounding for our relationship to the earth and its many fellow beings. Get so many wonderful items. Go there now. SyracuseCulturalWorkers.com.
Randy Krakowski's book, Without Reservation, describes his spiritual awakening as a Native American. It's a powerful, life-changing story where Randy shares his journey into the realm of ancestral Native American connections and explores his encounters with Mother Earth. The book actually helps you how to reconnect with your ancestors to rekindle your access to ancestral wisdom and nature. Available in print, ebook, and audiobook format. Get Without Reservation by Randy Krakowski from all major booksellers. For more information, visit randykrakowski.com.
Where positive people and radio unite. HealthyLife.net.
Welcome back to Indigenous Perspectives for our final segment with Lori Beavis and Michelle Sound.
So we're curious to know how the public has viewed, this particular show, and perhaps others. Lori, why don't you lead off and talk about how people respond standing there looking at the art?
I think people, well, of course, because of the fact that each of the drums are covered, and many of them are in these absolutely gorgeous pastel-colored rabbit furs, people say, "Can I touch?" And it's like, sorry, no. but you can look at the way that the air vent is making this one in particular move a little bit. But it's been lovely. It's the perfect antidote to a really cold January, February into Joggé, is to come in and see this delightful and work that is, as we said, like each individual piece is like a portrait of a person, or and holds a memory of somebody, and so that's really great. And we, it's, despite the cold, we've had a really nice number of people coming in, and that's really lovely. We've had a little bit of press coverage. We've had great press coverage. We've had great response to Daphne generally since we opened our doors in May, and it's generally people write really intelligently and really sensitively about the work, and with a growing understanding of what it is, in terms of what Indigenous art is and contemporary work is trying to sort of, what message it's trying to have and give out. And so, people generally about Daphne people are very happy to be, that we're here, and they're very encouraging of us being here, and to see, us here in January and open and with this exhibition, it's just been really, really lovely.
So, Michelle, you have an interesting take on this, which is truly contemporary COVID Zoom. Why don't you give us your feedback on how people are responding?
Yeah, so I am not in Montreal, and so I don't get to be in the space while it was open to the public. So one of the responses I've had was just installing it when I was there and hanging it up, and the bright colors were really attracting people walking by. Like people were popping their head in and stopping to look while I was installing because they were drawn to the colors. And I was like, that's a really nice response to see before the show's even up and before people can even, walk in. But for me, a lot of the response has been on social media. A lot of my work I post on Instagram and Facebook, and so that has been where a lot of positive response has been, especially when I first started making the drums. Like I made the first textile drum in January 2021, and it's such a weird time because it's COVID and you can't see anyone, and I didn't know when or if the works were ever going to be in an exhibition anytime soon. And so I just kind of posted the first denim drum on Instagram and was just kind of like thinking, you don't know what the response is going to be. Like, are people going to be like, what is this? What did you do? Like, that's not okay or whatever. And the response was like so incredibly positive. People were just like writing the best comments and just saying things like, I'm obsessed with this and this is incredible. And it was like, so nice and encouraging to hear when you're, making something and there's no other way to get any feedback. So as I was making them, I would just post them up on Facebook, on Instagram, and, just incredible comments. People were just so excited by them. And so, it's really nice too that they've opened in Vancouver and, people can actually see them in real life now. And I get tagged a lot on Instagram. Like people will post stories or tag me in the post. I've had a couple from Daphne as well, where people are in the gallery and they post that they're there and stuff. So that has been the way for me to connect with audiences that are going to the gallery in a way that probably wasn't possible before. And so that has been really nice to see, like so heartwarming. Like when they tag me and there's little hearts in the post and everything, and I'm just like, oh, thank you so much. So it's a great way to connect for sure.
That's certainly one of the things that Daphne's trying to do is we're contacting artists and having a lot of the first 3 exhibitions that we did were Quebec-based artists, but now Michelle's come from British Columbia and we've got artists coming from different territories and nations across the country, and so it's really it will be really nice for people to be able to come into Daphne in Montreal and see work from places that they may not be able to travel to, and bring artists here that may not have ever shown in Quebec or so it's really that's one of the things that we're really, really proud of being able to do.
One of the issues we've been struggling with, all of us in our society, is, meeting virtually, but you're describing sort of an upside of social media and things like Zoom, which is, the territory of the audience gets expanded, but also so does their response mode. I know for me, when I look at a piece of art, very often it's a day later or 2 days later or a week later that it, begins to sink in. Do you get those kinds of sort of reflective responses to the show?
I think one of the wonderful things about the fact that we're in a neighborhood where it's a sort of very interestingly mixed residential and retail street that we're on as well, and so the people pop in because they're on their way to shop or whatever. One of the other things that Daphne, we've made the decision at Daphne to do is to actually have longer running exhibitions as well. So generally our exhibitions are about 10 weeks in length, and which is sort of outside the norm. And what the intention is that people can come see the exhibition. If we'd had an opening, they could have come to the opening and then, but come and see the exhibition, go away, as you said, Randy, reflect on what they saw, and then come back for another visit, bring a different friend with them or whatever. And so that's, that's really, there's a really a nice feeling in that people don't have to see it like just once and it's over and it's gone and they'll never see it again, but they can come back and forth and visit us again and again. So.
Well, thank you both for what you're doing. It's really refreshing and encouraging to hear about this, and we're looking forward, to actually, seeing Michelle's art on the wall.
Okay, so we want to thank our two guests, Michelle Sound, visual artist, member of the Swan River First Nation, a Cree Nation from Western Canada, and Lori Beavis, executive director of Daphne Arts Center in Montreal. Daphne's website is https://Daphne, DAPHNE.art. We'll also have a link to it from the transcript for this show.
I hope this broadcast is giving you time and space to reconnect with your roots and Mother Earth and with your ancestral roots as well. Before your busy day distracts you from this moment, I encourage you to take a few minutes to reach out and feel the presence of living flora and fauna, and perhaps even that of your ancestors, or in this particular case, Michelle's aunties and ancestors. Allow yourself to touch their presence, capture the moment and hold on to it. And also, if you will, write to me and let me know about your experience. I can be contacted through my website at randykwiatkowski.com, where you can also find transcripts, printed transcripts, and supplemental materials for all Indigenous Perspectives shows. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Located near Shawnee, Oklahoma, Citizen Potawatomi Nation is Potawatomi County's largest employer with a rich history and culture as a sovereign Native nation. Learn more about CPN by visiting its website, which includes information on services for members, tribal enterprises, government and constitution, the newspaper, and much more. All at Potawatomi.org. That's POTAWATOMI.org.
Randy Kwiatkowski's book, Without Reservation, describes his spiritual awakening as a Native American. It's a powerful, life-changing story where Randy shares his journey into the realm of ancestral Native American connections and explores his encounters with Mother Earth. The book actually helps you how to reconnect with your ancestors to rekindle your access to ancestral wisdom and nature. Available in print, ebook, and audiobook format, Get Without Reservation by Randy Kwiatkowski from all major booksellers. For more information, visit randykwiatkowski.com.
Citizen Potawatomi Nation's Cultural Heritage Center, located near Shawnee, Oklahoma, features 11 immersive galleries with digital and interactive exhibits. Visitors learn about the tribe's history from origin to modern days and gain an understanding of Citizen Potawatomi oral traditions and lifeways. Admission is always free. Open Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., Saturday 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Visit the Cultural Heritage Center on the web at PotawatomiHeritage.com. Remember, help for a positive life. www.healthylife.net.